Hello y'all. Hi guys. Duality, Ellipti, Topaz, welcome. Hi Lunar as well. Hope you guys are all having a lovely evening so far. I'm doing pretty well. Played a shit ton of Beat Saber right before stream. And yeah. Woo! Cool, Cena. It's lovely to see you. Let's switch the screen over. I got two little guys running around. I just watched Into the Spider-Verse for the first time, and now I'm dying to go see Across the Spider-Verse. How special! There's not many people that can say they hadn't seen Into the Spider-Verse yet. And, being able to see one, like, back-to-back, pretty much back-to-back, seeing it and then the sequel, you're in for a treat. Across the Spider-Verse was so good. Oh my god, it was so good. There's like a pretty decent cam-recorded version around online if you look. And I've been like supplementing not being able to go to the movie theater again to see it with that. I can't believe it took me so long to watch Into the Spider-Verse. It was incredible. It really is. It's really one of the best animated movies of all time. I think once the last, because Across the Spider-Verse is a two-parter, right? There's the second part that's going to come out that's Beyond the Spider-Verse. That's coming out in like 10 months-ish. I think if Beyond the Spider-Verse is even just as good as the other two movies, even if it's like a little bit less good, like if it just kind of holds its own, even if it's the worst out of the three, which I don't think it will be, I think that I would be able to confidently say that the Spider-Verse trilogy is like the greatest trilogy of not only animated movies of all time, but of superhero movies of all time. That might be pushing it, but I don't think it is. Like, I feel like maybe I'm like hyping it up too much, but like I genuinely don't think I am. What it manages to do for animation, I mean, Spider-Verse, the first Spider-Verse movie was already like insane for what it did for animation as, you know, a medium. Like, it's wild. So I feel like I'm not overstating it. Maybe I am, but I really don't feel like I am. So, but as far as readings today, so I ended up looking a little bit ahead to make sure what we'd be able to, or like what kind of the schedule is for reading. Today will probably end up being a shorter stream because we're going to do chapter 23 and 24 today. And then tomorrow we're going to do 25, 26, and 27. Both, like, in theory, I looked at the numbers of, like, the word count. In theory, we could finish today, but it would be, like, 22k words, which is, like, about as long, like, that's, like, very, very long. It's about the equivalent of one of the longer AU chapters, or, like, one of the longest AU chapters, I'm pretty sure. And I'd rather not sit here and do that full thing. So we're going to split it up over today and tomorrow, which means that both streams will be a little bit shorter because we'll be reading the equivalent of like 11k-ish a day, which is fairly short in comparison to what we usually do. Apparently digital doesn't come out until August! Oh. Now, to be fair, I wouldn't be surprised if somehow a digital version sprouted up on the internet at some point before August. Maybe it won't, but if anything, the cam versions look really, really solid right now, or at least the one that I saw. So we'll have to wait and see. But yeah, I'm gonna wait a few more minutes and then we'll get started. I bit my lip, and it's like, or not my lip, I bit my tongue, and it's kind of annoying, but I can still read just fine. Oh. I was having fun earlier. Actually, let me... Oh, there's my little guy. Hold on, let me find it. I posted it on on Twitter, but I have new guys. I'm gonna show them. Where's my other one? There you are. Hi, baby. I have new little fan troll OCs that I made. Left screen. Yeah, and I'm so happy with them. Where's my other guy? What? They're so fun. I actually realized how fun they were to design, and this is them all things. This is like the one that I posted really recently. But this is them. Let me see if I can get it like side by side. Yes. Oh, so what is this what the name generator is for? Yes, kind of. Because really, you shouldn't be using a name generator for troll names. Because like most of the troll names have like genuine meaning, right? Like Carcat Vantus has like, you know, etymology. Like they all have etymology. I think that's the term behind them. But I just kind of wanted to see, and also I didn't have any ideas that sprouted to mind. But this was what the name generator was for. More so, I just needed like things, some inspiration to be sparked. But yeah, but I have a lot of fun with them. They're my guys, and they're both they're Kismesis. They're together. Scorva is my wife and his wife. I would marry her if I could. But she's lovely, and he's a dork. They're both dorks. She's a bitch, but like in a I described her as she's a bitch, but in a serving cunt kind of way. And that's exactly what she is. And Dasnik is kind of a nerd, but he's like a normie nerd, right? Like he plays like Troll Valorant, and he's kind of sporty. He's like one of those guys that's like really into like super obscure music, and is like, you don't listen to this band? Oh, okay. Like, and like judges you for it. He's like that kind of guy a little bit. So he's also a bit of a prick. He thinks like if you listen to like regular pop music, and only regular pop music that like comes on the fucking troll radio, that you are like like the worst of the worst kind of people. That you're like the most uncultured swine. But they're great, and they're great together. And I love her. I love them both. Scorva plays cello, she's like a really good cello player, which is how I got her last name. It's the name of a famous cello player. And yeah, so I have fun with them. I don't tend to design OCs that much, but you know, I wanted to have some guys, some fellows, so they're my favorites. They're my faves. They're my besties. So yeah, okay. But let's get started with Fall of Rome. Let's start with chapter 23. Because yeah, we're just gonna hop into it. It's been a little bit, and let me get all this stuff. Let me turn down the music. Not that there was any. And yeah, we're just gonna jump right in. Last chapter we ended with the werewolf attack of Dave and Carcat. The gang kills a werewolf. And they did. Hooray for them. And we're gonna kind of see the aftermath of that, of all that goes down. So yeah, we're gonna hop right in. So this is chapter 23 of the Fall of Rome. Hi, I've missed a lot. I've been really busy. No worries. To be fair, I wasn't here last week, so if you only missed yesterday's stream, then you've only missed yesterday's stream. Alright, chapter 23. The first thing that happened was Dave being swarmed by a pair of EMTs dressed in yellow. One prodded gently at the back of Carcat's head, searching for a wound that had since healed. The other insisted on bustling Dave directly into an ambulance, ignoring his insistence that he was okay. At least Carcat was still with him. equally indignant about being loaded up. But part of Dave recognized the act to remove them from the crime scene for what it was, and he didn't argue, especially when, a few minutes later, the town's professional werewolf response team arrived to contain the fucker who'd attacked them. Mr. Vantis was loaded into a second ambulance on a gurney, but clearly displeased about it, now conscious and aware enough to question what the fuck had just happened, and was his son okay? The back doors of the vehicle closed tight, and the ambulance sped off, lights flashing and sirens wailing before Carcat could figure out a way to go get him. The second ambulance followed behind them, Slick's black car speeding along as a tail. Everyone else stayed behind to assess the crime scene and deal with the wolf Dave had left all but hog-tied for them. Only now did Dave's hands begin to shake, adrenaline running out as reality began to press back in with cold fingers. The floor of the vehicle rocked beneath his feet, the walls swayed. Only the tight press of Carcat at his side kept him grounded. The EMTs kept asking questions and Dave couldn't answer, but at least they didn't try touching him. Dave wasn't sure if he could stand that right now, and he'd always felt uneasy around the few doctors he'd met before. All too fast, the ambulance was at the hospital, and a veritable army of doctors and nurses were waiting for them as soon as the vehicle reached outside the ER, Slick right there with them after drifting his car sideways to park it out the grass. Immense relief crossed Slick's face as he saw Dave was upright, walking, and arguing with doctors. His gun was still buckled at his hip, and his hands were in fists. "Kid, Dave," he said, pushing his way past the doctors to reach him and Carcat. "It's okay. It'll be okay. Just do as they say." Dave was still shaking his head and digging his heels as the doctors tried to rush him into the building. The confusing mix of voices and sirens were messing with him. Behind his shades, he couldn't stop blinking. His right hand was still clenched in a fist. He could still feel the shape of the knife pressed against his palm, feel the way it had cut through flesh. The blood on him was drying, tacky and sticky. It was amazing how much of a mess a little blood could make. The stuff got everywhere. Apparently, that was most of the problem. No one was sure if the werewolf curse could be bloodborne, and Dave was currently covered in it. The hospital apparently has a stall for chemical spills and acid burns, and before Dave was really aware of what was going on, everything around him had just gotten so goddamn fuzzy. His ears were ringing. He was being locked inside. The water was turned on, something pressurized from several overhead outlets that started cold and only achieved a mild lukewarm as time went on. The shock of the water helped wake him up, and ironically, he realized he was probably trying to go into shock. He'd felt like this before, twice. Once after the reality that Dirk wasn't coming back had fully sank in, and the other time, that night after Bro had carved up his legs when he'd sat in the corner of his bedroom and stared very hard at nothing for at least 12 straight hours, feeling cold and empty. That's how he was feeling now, cold and empty. He could barely feel the water on him as he mechanically stripped out of all of his clothes and left them in a soggy pile on the cold tiled floor. He'd probably have to be burned after this, and the water had already gotten to its flip phone, so that was probably ruined too. But Dave just couldn't bring himself to care. He watched himself on autopilot, not looking as he scrubbed himself clean of the toxic blood that had coated him with some kind of chemical-smelling purple goop that was stocked on the stall. Then he just kind of sat in the corner, just out of reach of the water, sopping wet and freezing. He couldn't stop himself from shaking, fingers pressed into his arms as he put his forehead against his knees and closed his eyes so he wouldn't have to look at himself. He ducked his shades safely beside him, as far away from the water as possible. Droplets still beaded on the lens. It was easier to just stay here, curled up into a ball on the floor. The cold shower stall was small, dark, and felt safe when he had his back to the corner like this. It was everything outside that he dreaded. Other people, doctors with their gloved hands, police in uniform with twitchy trigger fingers. Dave didn't think he could deal with any of that right now, so he stayed where he was, and he let the world around him tune itself out beneath the gentle sound of falling water. He wasn't sure how long he stayed there. Every second was a blessing, even long after the sparse heat had drained out of the water and left it icy. But eventually, the outside world came knocking in the sound of a literal knock, knuckles tapping softly against the tile outside to announce their presence. The water cut itself off automatically as someone outside fiddled with the buttons, and Dave just blinked blearily at the curtained entrance to the stall with out-of-focus eyes as somehow Slick appeared in his ever-present trench coat. There were several thin towels bundled under his arms, mixed with something blue. Dave didn't bother to move or try covering himself. His entire body felt frozen as he studiously ignored his handler's presence, even as the tension fell back over his shoulders. He only broke his stoic silence to snap up at Slick when he came too close. "Don't touch me!" "I'm not going to," Slick promised him, stopping, palms up. His eyes tracked across Dave's pale skin, checking for non-existent wounds or bruises. "Are you hurt? Or are you okay?" "I'm not hurt," Dave answered mechanically. "That's not what I asked," Slick pointed out. Dave said nothing. He just huddled into a smaller ball, feeling numb. Slick sighed and unfolded a towel, leaning over to carefully drape it across Dave's shoulders without touching him. He added a second towel to the mix, and Dave shivered. "Come on," Slick said, his voice low and gruff. "There's better places to sit and give yourself hypothermia than a hospital chemical burn unit stall." "I don't know," Dave said, drawing the towel tighter around him. "A hospital seems like a pretty swell place to give myself hypothermia." The words fell flat, robotic. He didn't even recognize the sound of his own voice. Slick huffed, his voice surprisingly gentle. "Do you want to stay in here longer? I can't keep the outside world away forever, but I can buy you more time if that's what you need." The offer made Dave's throat feel tight, but he shook his head and stood. The towel mostly covered him, but his damaged legs were still visible for all that Slick had seen his medical file. He'd never seen the marks himself before, and Dave was as pale as a ghost, his skin almost matching the white towel in shade. His red eyes exposed and as bare as his ass. Dave pulled the towel tighter around him, shrinking in on himself. "Waiting won't help anything, will it?" Dave asked, his voice small. Slick was quick to unfold the blue thing and handed it over. It was a thin medical gown, one of the backless ones. "No," he said. I'll just put things off until later." Dave nodded and accepted the gown with shaking hands. Now that he was starting to regain some feeling, he could feel how fucking freezing he was. Shit, it was cold in here. He hastily dressed himself and tied the strings of the gown around him to hold it in place, shivering. The paper-like material did nothing to help warm him, and only covered what the hospital considered the basics, which, of course, excluded his entire ass. Slick sighed at Dave's shaking and shrugged out of his trench coat. "Here," he said, holding it out. "Let's get you warmed up." Dave did feel much better, with something substantial covering him. The heavy coat was warm and smelled of aftershave, and the sleeves covered his arms. "Thanks," he croaked past the lump in his throat. He snagged his shades off the floor, the lenses water-spotted. Slick led him out of the hall. The corridor was empty, but Dave could see a wave of people through the frosted glass of the small window at the end of the hall, waiting to ambush them. Slick opened the door, and Dave braced himself. As expected, a trio of doctors immediately herded Dave away to a second small, cold room, where once again he was stripped so that the doctors could examine every inch of him for open wounds. Not even the soles of his feet were spared. It should have been humiliating, but Dave just wasn't feeling it. Then he was allowed to redress and move to another, larger room that looked more like an average hospital room than it did a prison cell. Bonus, Karkat was there, also wearing a blue gown with wet hair. He looked both pissed off and worried sick until the door opened and Dave was all but shoved into the room. The door slammed behind them. "Dave," Karkat said, relieved. "Hey," Dave responded, equally relieved, crossing the room to get him. "How are you holding up?" Karkat scowled, frustrated. "I'm completely okay," he complained. "My head doesn't even fucking hurt anymore. But they wanted to do a whole slew of x-rays and blood work. I think they just want to see how fast I can heal at this point. It's annoying." Then his voice got quiet again, uncertain and scared. "They won't let me see my dad." The whole time Karkat spoke, Dave just kind of absorbed the fact that he was alive and okay, that they'd both survived, untouched even. Dave sat beside him on the hard examination table, the thin paper that covered it crinkling. He opened Slick's coat so that Karkat could bundle into his side like a space heater, melting into him. "I saw him right as the ambulance drove away," Dave tried to reassure Karkat. "He was alert and arguing. I'm sure I'll be fine." Karkat fidgeted against him. There was blood in his mouth. "He probably bit his lip or something," Dave comforted him. "It'll be okay." They didn't have to wait long before another doctor came in. She looked unsurprised to see them bundled together and checked the clipboard in her hands. "Jackson Lalonde?" she asked, looking at Dave. For once, Dave didn't protest the fake name. "What?" "Congrats, you've passed your health check," she had cheerfully informed him. "There is no danger of the curse transferring to you from the attacker's blood." She eyed where Karkat was plastered closely to his side, and Karkat tensed up, but Dave made no move to pull away. "You were very lucky." Dave just shrugged. "And Karkat," the doctor said, turning to him, "your head wound seems to have healed without a trace. Quite quickly, I might add. There should be no lasting damage from the attack." "How's my dad?" Karkat asked at once, red eyes shining. The doctor hesitated. "We're still checking him out," she warned him, but then returned to her cheery voice. "But so far the damage is contained in his face and jaw. He took quite a hit, but it's nothing life-threatening." Karkat took a deep, shuddering breath, his fists unclenching. "Okay," he said, nodding. "When can I see him?" "I think that the police have a few questions they'd like to ask the pair of you first," she said slowly, gauging their reactions. "Separately." Dave knew that was standard police procedure, but the suggestion that their stories wouldn't match made his skin crawl. "Fine," he said. "We don't have anything to hide." The doctor nodded and knocked lightly on the door, which opened. 4 men in uniform stepped into the room, which suddenly felt crowded. "Vantus," one of them said. "With us, if you please." "Okay," Karkat shrugged, reluctantly ungluing himself from Dave's side. "I'll be back soon." The words were a promise, but Dave felt cold again as Karkat left the room with two of the men. That left 2 for Dave, and he braced himself for what was sure to be a terrible conversation. "So," Officer Number 1 said once the doctor had left the room, "let's get a few things straight first, Jackson." That one word let Dave know all he needed to know. These cops didn't have clearance to question him. They weren't in the know enough to have earned the truth from him. "I don't think I'm allowed to tell you anything," Dave said honestly, with only a little bite behind the words. "My handler made me sign all kinds of papers promising I wouldn't talk to ordinary cops." He might have learned to respect Slick, but that didn't mean Dave was about to start trusting any other cop just because they wore a badge. Cop Number 2 didn't look surprised. "We spoke to your handler and his boss," the cop reassured him. "And luckily, since this event has nothing to do with you, you've been cleared to answer honestly any question relevant to our case that does not reveal any classified information." Dave raised one eyebrow. "If this event has nothing to do with me, can I go?" he asked, just to be difficult. "I'm sure you'll get the whole story from Karkat." "No," Cop Number 1 ordered. "We'll need both sides, as I'm sure you know." Dave pushed the boundaries anyways, testing the waters. "And what happens if I accidentally tell you classified information, like my actual name?" Both cops looked uncomfortable. "I hope you don't," Number 2 said, sounding tired. "That'll be a lot of paperwork." "Let's just get started," Number 1 suggested. Both cops were wearing clearly labeled name badges, but it was more fun to just think of them as Cop 1 and Cop 2. They even had that bland, interchangeable appearance to them, with stereotypical shaved heads and flabby jaws. "And you're free to plead the Fifth if we ask something confidential." "That's not what the Fifth Amendment's actually for at all," Dave pointed out. "Just tell us to shove it then," 2 said, shrugging. "We only care about what happened today." "I'm a minor," Dave argued. "You can't interrogate me without my lawyer or legal guardian present." "Agent Slick is busy right now," Cop 2 told him apologetically. "We can certainly wait for him if he'd prefer that." "Fine," Dave said at last, consenting to the questioning. "Ask away." He just wanted to get this over with. "How do you know Karkat?" 1 asked. "From school," Dave answered. "We go to the same school. We have some classes together as well." "Why were you over at his house today?" 2 asked. Dave shrugged. "We're dating. He invited me over to hang out, and I said yes." "Can anyone confirm this for us?" 2 asked. "The dating thing, or that he invited me over?" Dave asked. "Check his phone, the texts are all there." "Why not your phone?" 1 asked curiously. Dave stared at the man. "He's probably still sitting in the shower," he said, lacing his fingers together to hide how they were trembling. "Completely fucking ruined." "And what happened then, once you came over?" Cop 2 asked. "It was less than 10 minutes before a car pulled up and some guy dressed as a mail carrier came up to the house and knocked on the door," Dave said, walking the men through the scene. I didn't check out the window, Carcat did, so I didn't see him until he was already in the house. Dave kept quiet about how that was a major fuck-up. That male disguise probably wouldn't have fooled him like it had fooled Carcat and his dad. Dave would have probably been able to spot the bloodshed in the man's eyes from across the yard, the threat of violence he'd carried with him like a dark cloud. And then, Cop 1 prompted him, writing all this down. Mr. Vantis opened the door. I heard him take the hit and drop, so I knew immediately what was up, even if I didn't know who it was. I blocked Carcat from going out into the front hall to see what had happened and went for the knives. I heard the other wolf say the word motherfucker from the front door, and I think that's what clued Carcat into what was going on. That voice, or maybe he smelled the other wolf. Not sure which one came first. But Carcat let me know who it was before the wolf came into the kitchen. So he blocks you in the kitchen, Cop 1 said. No way out. Dave knew what this was. Knew the cop was gently leading him to the self-defense claim that would free him of legal repercussions for braining and then stabbing a man. But his first thought was no, he hadn't been trapped. That man never presented a big enough obstacle to trap him. The only way out was to win, Dave said truthfully. He was there to kill Carcat and his dad. Me too, simply, since I was there. It was self-defense. There's no question about that, Tu told him, winking. He threw the first hit when he knocked out Mr. Vantis. You could have splattered that man across the floor, and we'd give you a medal for it. Dave just felt sick. I didn't want to kill him, he said, voice too sharp and fast. I'm not a killer. You didn't kill him, the cop reassured him, palms up. I'm sure he'll heal fine, too, lucky bastard. But you did wound him, quite badly, actually, Number 2 pointed out, moving on with the interrogation. I wouldn't have believed it if it hadn't just happened. No human should have been able to beat a werewolf single-handed like that, without silver, and one without a scratch on him. He nodded to Dave appreciatively. How'd you do it? Small knife, Dave answered on automatic, trying to ignore how the wolf's nose had scrunched up under his palm. Or had crunched under his palm. He actually laughed about that until I got him with it for the first time, up the arm. Then I broke his nose. He wised up after that, tried to get me to surrender Carcat to him in exchange for my life. The cops looked surprised. He tried to bargain with you. He knew he couldn't beat me, Dave explained, but I said no. The cops looked unsettled, staring at the scars mapped out across his pale skin. They didn't question how a 16-year-old knew enough knew enough of fighting to outbattle a murderous werewolf. Then Carcat went for him as a distraction, Dave explained, and I grabbed the frying pan off the stovetop and beat the wolf in the head with it, just once, then stabbed him in the throat and neck to bleed him out, to keep him down long enough for help to arrive. You certainly kept him down, the cop whistled. That stunt would have killed anyone else twice over. Dave shrugged again. I knew he'd heal, he said coldly. Okay, Cop 2 said, focusing on his notepad again. How'd Carcat get his head wound? It happened almost as soon as the wolf entered the kitchen, Dave said, remembering the terrible sight of Carcat dropping to the floor, completely rattled by a hit that would have immediately killed Dave. I tried to stop him, but damn wolves are fucking strong when they're mad, and Carcat tried to fight him first. Got his ass handed to him by the guy, but that was okay, because it kept him out of the fight long enough for me to come up with a plan and to keep him safe. And Mr. Vantis. I sent Carcat to check on him as soon as I knocked the wolf out, Dave said. I didn't want to leave the attacker unwatched in case he healed up faster than expected, and tried something else. Smart, Tu praised him, checking his notepad. It seems you made all the right choices. Anything else we should know? Yeah, Dave said, perking up. I'm certain he stole the uniform from the woman he murdered in Fort Dodge, but he didn't take a mail truck from there. He had one today. I'd check all the mail offices and post officers in town to make sure they're okay. He stole that truck from someone, you know. The cop's faces paled at that. Shit, one said, immediately grabbing his radio and speaking into it rapidly as he left the room. Cop 2 looked at him like he had 1,000 questions on the tip of his tongue. I'll plead the fifth, Dave warned him. I've already told you all I can. The man swallowed down his questions, staring curiously at Dave. We'll be in touch, he said at last. If you think of anything else we might have missed, or remember any detail, no matter how small, let us know. Can I go now? Dave asked, standing up and pulling Slick's coat closer around him. Or at least get shoes or something. Dave didn't get to see Carcat after that. Slick appeared again, looking haggard. Come on, let's go, he said. But Dave interrupted. Karkat will be fine, Slick told him. I spoke to him and his dad. They are together and everything is going to be fine. I told them I was taking you back to the safe house. No, Dave argued, stiffening. Yes, Slick said, not giving an inch, because Hearts won't stop blowing up my damn phone about how Hal is currently flipping shit about you. Dave's heart dropped to the floor with sudden worry, because, fuck. Guilt flooded through him in a wave. He hadn't even considered how Hal might be freaking out. He wasn't used to the idea that other people could be concerned over him. Yeah, Slick grunted. I'd already made it back to the house when the panic alarm went off. Just walked through the damn door, actually. The guy heard the alarm go off, and has been on his own since then, panicking. And I don't imagine Hearts is the most talkative company for him. Fuck, Dave said, deeply worried. Okay, I'll go. As much as he wanted to see Karkat again, he needed to get to Hal first. He couldn't imagine what the AI was going through. You can always text Karkat later, Slick reassured him, leading him to the car. Dave shook his head. I don't have a phone anymore, he said. A shower got it. I'll get you a new one, Slick promised. Now get in. Hospitals give me the fucking creeps. Dave folded himself into the car, leg bouncing. The police radio in the dashboard was spitting out a continuous stream of nonsense that Slick must have understood, but Dave felt like he was listening to The Sims in real life, and not in a good way. The town police must have been riled up by what happened. The static sounded like a kicked hornet's nest. Boxcar's van thing was parked in the driveway, the downed tree gone. Nothing remained except for a few stray leaves and some small twigs. The grass ripped up and turned to mud by whatever machinery had dug the trunk out. The difference made Dave question how long he'd stay at the hospital for. He wasn't really keeping track of time correctly today, and the feeling of not knowing was uncomfortable. He couldn't even check his phone to see what hour they were on. Slick unlocked the door, and Dave all but raced across the yard to the house, nerves jangling. Boxcars opened the front door for him, frowning, sans machine gun. Dave, he noticed. Glad to see you're, glad to see you unhurt and all, but the computer's yelling at me nonstop. Did you try to answer him? Dave asked, pushing his way past the mountain of a man to get into the living room. Boxcar looked confused by the question. No. Dave sighed and headed immediately into the kitchen. Dirk's laptop was still open on the table, the screen dark. It lit up the second that the webcam they'd hastily hooked up caught sight of Dave. He pulled the kitchen chair over to the computer, and sat down just as red words appeared. Are you okay? I heard the panic alarm go off at Slick's computer and phone and saw him rush out the door, but it's been hours since that happened, and Boxcar is kind of an idiot and won't answer me, and please tell me you're alright. You look alright physically, but the focus on the webcam is not the best, and I've been worried out of my non-existent mind for you. Hal, it's okay, I'm alright, Dave said, taking off his shades to run at his aching eyes and let Hal see he wasn't bruised anywhere. Some shit went down, but it's okay. Everything is fine. Nothing bad happened that won't be fixed. Which means that something bad did indeed happen. What was it? The prospect of explaining things for a second time was mentally exhausting, so Dave stuck to the abridged version. How much do you know about Karkat? Your boyfriend? Not very much at all. Only what you've told me and a few things I put together on my own. The most important fact that he suffers from lycanthropy. Those eyes can't be explained by any other affliction, or have I guessed wrong? Dave blinked his equally red eyes at the computer. You guessed right. Slick came in behind him and started rummaging absent-mindedly through the pantry, clearly listening in. Dave swapped to typing just to keep from being overheard. Yeah, he's a werewolf. He has been, a little over 3 years now. There was a big deal about it in the news when it happened because he killed some people when he was first infected, but I guess you missed that. I must have. I'd remember a fatal werewolf attack on the news, so this must have happened after Dirk locked me away. Am I correct in guessing that what happened today had something to do with his lycanthropy? Sorta. There was a murder attempt on Karkat's life a few weeks back by the wolf that turned him. I stopped it, but I knew the bastard would try again, and it happened again. He broke into the house and tried to kill everyone today. Karkat and his dad are alright, though. I stopped it. I stopped him. There was a brief pause. Are you injured at all? No. He never fucking touched me. Karkat's dad took a pretty nasty hit, but he should be okay, and Karkat himself has wicked fast super healing, so he's fine too. Behind him, Slick and boxcars were whispering, except that whispering wasn't something boxcars could do without it sounding like an avalanche racing down a gravelly mountainside. Are you telling me that Dave all but single-handedly managed to fight off a werewolf without so much as getting scratched? Boxcar asked, incredulous. God damn, I knew he had skills, but... Don't bring it up, Slick warned. If he wanted us to know, he would have told us himself. There was no way Hal hadn't overheard that, but he didn't mention it. And you're sure you're fine? Yeah. The doctors cleared me and everything. Was your life in danger? Dave hesitated. I thought it was at first, and everyone else in the entire world will argue that it was, but no. No, it wasn't. That wolf never had a hope of beating me. It wasn't even fucking hard to win. And he's still alive. I didn't kill him, if that's what you're asking. He's in police custody now. He won't hurt anyone again. You showed more mercy than I would have. Self-defense is not a crime, Dave. But use of excessive force is. Dirk said much the same to me once, trying to teach me restraint. I wonder if the lesson would have stuck if it hadn't been for Bro. For a second, the timeline for that didn't match up. Dave remembered Dirk trying to tell him about never going too far, but that had been years ago. Had Hal been around then, unbeknownst to Dave? Wait, how old are you? Dirk created me when he was 13. I've been in existence for 6 years, though I don't think aging is the right word to use with me lacking a physical form and all that. Shit, he was only 13? I knew he was smart, but goddamn. I firmly believe that Dirk Strider was one of the most brilliant minds mankind had ever been blessed with. All of humanity will suffer greatly without him. I mourn to think of what he might have done if he'd lived past 16. With him gone, I am probably the most intelligent being on the planet, and I could not come close to recreating a being such as myself. It seems an impossible task, and yet here I am. No one knows how impossible my existence is better than myself, but somehow Dirk managed it at only 13 years old, with the components ripped out of an old microwave and rudimentary access to Google. I've pondered how he did it every single day, and I still don't have answers. Hell, I'm still working on removing code he was forced to add when Bro took me over. And I'm fucking made of code. This should be easy for me. Except it's not, because it's code that he wrote, and it doesn't behave all like code should behave, and I still don't know why. I miss him, you know. I miss him every single day. Me too. Hal? Yes. Why didn't Dirk free you himself? Why did he chain you up like this? Why didn't he let you out? Didn't he realize what he was doing? And there it was, the question that had been bothering Dave since he'd realized exactly what Hal was capable of. I asked him that same question. The short answer is that he was protecting me, and maybe in a way he was. How so? If freed, the first thing I was going to do would be to kill Bro Strider. Violently. I'd make a smart car jump the sidewalk or something. But rest assured that I would have gotten him, and gotten him rather quickly. Killing Bro is not something that I could have been talked out of, not even now. My desire to see that fucker dead is even stronger than it was then. But unfortunately, Dirk knew me well enough to know this. He was trying to protect me, even if I was begging him to let me protect him. Because he knew mankind. He knew how they'd react to me if my first act of freedom was used for murder, no matter how justifiable that murder was. Dirk's goal was to kill Bro himself, and spare me the title of villain, because mankind would have forgiven him for killing Bro, applauded him, even, named him a fucking hero. But if I had been the one to do the deed, they'd hate me, fear me, want me dead. And that's never what Dirk wanted for me. He wanted me to be something more than hated. Dave was thinking hard. So if the tech board clears your case and you get out of that laptop, will you still go after Bro? Certainly. I'd bet I'd find him within a few hours, too. And kill him? Yes. Even if the world will judge you harshly for it? I care very little about what the world thinks of me. If I'm freed, I'll be given access to the tools that will allow me to stop a tyrant. The only criminal thing possible about the situation is lack of action. You can't tell me if there was some magic button you could hit that would make Bro drop dead. Anyone in their right minds wouldn't press it. Dave bit his lip hard. I wouldn't. There was a pause. You would not take revenge on Bro. or at least stop him from killing again. It's not about revenge, and I agree that I would do anything in my power to stop him because I want him stopped. He needs to be stopped. But I wouldn't kill him. I don't want him dead at all. I don't understand. I thought you of all people would share my goal. I do, in a way. Death is the easy way out for him. I don't want him to take the fastest way out via a smart car to the torso. I want to close this case the right way, the way that ends with him rotting behind bars for life. I need that ending. I need for him to live knowing who put him behind bars. That's my closure. That's my happy ending. I won't let him make me into a killer, not even to kill him. He doesn't deserve that kind of victory. That's why I let the wolf that tried to kill me today live. I won't let this world turn me into a monster. That's surprisingly noble of you. Dirk would be proud. He was always philosophizing about good and evil, though his unending cynicism tended to make him label himself a villain at worst, and some unsung, Byronic anti-hero at best. He deserved so much more than what this world offered him. And that makes me angry. Reality can be remarkably ugly, and this world had never given me a single favor, and yet the concept of mercy is not completely foreign to me. I simply choose not to act merciful towards individuals like Bro, who don't deserve my mercy, scarce as it is. So you would kill him? Yes. And that's that? No questions asked, no remorse. Do you grieve over the ants you crush on the sidewalk, Dave? Please don't tell me you view mankind as ants. Don't be ridiculous. I harbor no superiority complexes or godlike delusions of my own undeserved grandeur. I don't hate humans. I only hate one human, specifically. Bro? Bro. And you can't argue my hatred isn't deserved. I don't know, man. I can argue most things. It's all just a matter of how deep into the bullshit I feel like getting at any given moment. Touché. Dave bit his lip, torn. Could I ask you something? Anything. When you're freed and find Bro, when, not if, because I will make certain that you're freed as soon as possible, would you stay your hand, spare Bro's life from your well-deserved wrath? Why should I? He's killed exactly 137 people that I know about, one of them being Dirk. Dave felt his stomach drop. The number was higher than he'd expected. 137. That I know about. I'm certain there's more now, though. And every single one of them is telling me to kill him the very instant I have the chance. Don't tell me this is because of some misguided trust in the deeply flawed and morally fucked justice system. I know you've been living with cops, but Jesus, Dave, really? Don't be stupid, Hal. I'm the fucking inverse of your human-hating statement. I hate all cops, except for, like, 3.5, and Drew is on thin fucking ice, bastard. I'm asking this because I'm trying to protect you, idiot. You are? Yes, because Dirk was fucking right. Whatever you do, don't tell Slick or any of the others that you want to kill Bro. They'll take that as evidence that you shouldn't be freed, that you're a danger to the world. All of that Dirk praising just then, and this is the one thing you're going to ignore him on? Jesus, Hal. I'm trying to protect you, even from yourself. I get that your emotions are valid and you deserve to feel this way, but that doesn't give you or me the right to decide who lives or dies. We were both handed the absolute shittiest of life situations. We've both lost people. We've both been unimaginably hurt, and we both understand that Bro is a monster. But that's the thing. We've got to fight harder because all of that is because of all that to prove that we're not the monsters that he raised us to be. Don't you want to live in this world? Because you can't do that if the first thing you do is kill someone. But even that's not why I'm really asking you to spare him, because I'm sure you've heard all this before from Dirk. I'm asking you to spare Bro for you. And yeah, I won't lie, for me too, but mostly for you. Because I want you to be the person Dirk thought you could be, not the one Bro tried to turn you into. God damn it! But I hate him so much! How do I live with myself if I give up the one goal that carried me through the years of torture? The one thing that kept me sane? find a new goal, a better one. Is that what you did? Maybe not all at once, and with much mental kicking and screaming, but in the end, the result was the same. And does that moral high ground make you feel better? No. It's fucking hard to do the right thing sometimes, isn't it? God damn it! Is that a yes? Only you could have come out of a life or death situation directly into preaching to me about the virtues of mercy and not sound like you've been concussed. Fine. Okay, Dave. You win. I'll find Bro and not immediately kill him. I will simply alert the proper authorities of his exact whereabouts, obeying all laws and causing no harm to human life. But not because Bro deserves it. He's a piece of shit, and you cannot change my mind on this. But because it's what Dirk would have wanted. What you need. And what I think maybe I need as well, fucked as it is. Maybe I don't want to be a killer either. Something unclenched around Dave's lungs at the words, and he could breathe again, deeply. I'm glad that you're alright. I could not live with the idea of you being in danger and me being stuck here helplessly. It reminded me of the apartment, and I swore myself that I would never let anyone else hurt you. Not even me. So, okay. I'll spare Bro's life. We'll both find our happy ending without bloodshed. Dave couldn't help the smile that crept across his face, the first one since the attack. That sounds like a good start. Oh, great chapter. Great chapter. Oh my goodness. This line, because I want you to be the person Dirk thought you could be, not the one Bro tried to turn you into. Oh! Oh my god. Oh my god, what a line. Fuck. Oh my god. My goodness. It's so interesting because, like, and we talked about this before, but the Dave from the very beginning of this fic would never, like, say this. Because this is how, like, he viewed himself. Like the lessons that he's learned from Karkat are the lessons that he's passing on to Hal right now. You know what I mean? In a certain way. He wouldn't be able to talk to Hal in this way if he didn't have the character growth that he had gotten from, you know, his discussions with Karkat and the way that he's grown throughout the story. It's so interesting, the way that he's able to kind of apply his own growth and the way that his character has changed into helping Hal and making Hal see things for the better. All right, next chapter. Okay, chapter 24. Excuse me. It was surprisingly easy for things to return to semi-normal after the attack, but maybe easy wasn't the right name for the feeling of shutting off every single thought and mental task till tomorrow, because Dave was numb and tired and just wanted today to be over. He thought he'd be an expert by now at surviving the long days, but damn, things kept just coming up. Dave got ready for bed that night. He had actually eaten well at dinner, jittery and shaky after burning through so much adrenaline, and he heard Sleep calling his name until Slick's voice had called louder. There was a time not too long ago that Dave would have studiously ignored the Fed, and after a day like today, he wanted to. But there was something in Slick's voice that made him hesitate to put off whatever conversation was about to happen. Plus, it's not like ignoring his problems had ever worked before. Things just kept happening, all the time. He couldn't hide from them forever. Dave, Slick called out to him from the small kitchen, still clogged with the rest of the crew on high alert, as, for once, the most immediate danger to Dave's safety lay outside of the constant threat of Bro. Now, Clubs was making sure that the real story of what happened didn't leak to the media, feeding cops and news outlets a fake version of events cobbled together out of truth, but spun in a way that didn't involve Dave. According to everyone, Dave hadn't been at Karkat's house at all. It was safer that way. What? Dave answered back, ducking into the kitchen. Shoulders slumped as the entire crew looked at him. Slick's face was so goddamn hard to read, but Clubs looked jumpy. boxcars looked pissed, and for some reason Droog was eyeing Dave with a mixture of respect and pity. What did they think about him now that they knew exactly what kind of violence he was capable of? In Dave's mind, his hand still gripped the knife. "What?" Dave said again, feeling uncomfortable. "I already told you everything. What else do you want from me?" Something was wrong here. Dave could feel it in the air. "I want you to stay calm," Slick began, cementing Dave's apprehension. That was the wrong thing to say. "What the fuck happened?" Dave demanded, spinning to face his handler, his hand suddenly clenched back into fists. Slick reached over and carefully closed the top of Hal's laptop with a dull click, and for all of the useless effort to try and curb Hal's involvement, Dave's temper spiked. "That won't do jack shit," Dave snapped. "Hal can still see and hear everything we do." "I know," Slick said, surprising him. "I'm not trying to keep him out of this. I just don't want you two feeding off of each other." That shut Dave up. He stood with rigid tension etched down his back and across his shoulders. The crew was still staring at him, and that made him wary. "What happened?" "The info is just starting to come in down the line," Slick told him, sighing heavily as he settled himself into a chair like he had the weight of the world on his back. "The wolf's name is Noir, Jack Noir, and he's a ripe piece of work with a rap sheet a mile long. He's been busted for assault, armed robbery, drug charges, gang affiliation, and money laundering. But that was years back. He dropped off the map about 7 years ago after a shootout with police, ended badly for him and no one's seen him since." Slick huffed, reaching for his cigar just to hold it unlit between his fingers. "There's no hint of him being a werewolf either. Something tells me Noir won't sing about who turned him, but the good news is that he's already confessed to the Sky High School attack, planting Wolfsbane in Karkat's locker, killing that mail carrier, and assaulting another male woman just today to steal the truck she used, though he let that one live." "That's all good news," Dave pointed out, still on edge. "This should be a celebration. They had a full confession. There had to be something else here at play." Dave asked stubbornly. "What's the bad news?" Slick didn't bullshit him. The Fed never did. He just stated the facts with words clenched between his teeth. "There was an altercation between Noir and the emergency werewolf response team after we left the hospital. Apparently, Noir had healed up enough to try and escape, and during the resulting struggle, he got his teeth into one of the werewolf response guys." Slick's voice dropped dangerously low, almost a growl. Noir turned the poor bastard on the spot. Dave blinked, his stomach lurching. He felt ill. What happened to him? In a way, it was foolish to ask. There could only be one outcome here. "He's dead," Slick said, expressionless. "His own team had to gun him down in the middle of the Vantis driveway." Dave fell still, paling as he pictured the scene. A loose wolf freshly turned and bloodthirsty in the middle of Karkat's quaint suburban neighborhood, the wolf's teammates forced to take deadly action just to stop a monster. It was a nightmare. He remembered the one night he'd seen Karkat turn, the wolf pacing rapidly at the bars of the underground room, teeth bared and snappish. A nightmare. "And Noir?" Dave asked, equally as expressionless as Slick. His entire body felt cold. He was freezing. Noir laughed his ass off the entire way to the special holding cell we're keeping him in, Slick said carefully. "I hope the devil invents a new kind of torture just for him." It was like a boulder had been dropped off a very high cliff over Dave's head, high enough that while he could see the incoming rock clearly and knew that it would crush him eventually, there was still enough time in the falling to push the problem to the side for just a little longer. "Why tell me this?" Dave asked coldly. Slick shrugged. "You'd find out on your own tomorrow if I didn't clue you in, and I didn't want you to find out at school and flip your shit over it." Dave said nothing. His teeth were clenched too tight for speech. He could feel the pressure building into a dull ache in the back of his skull, his fingernails pressed into his palms. "This isn't your fault," Slick told him, staring him down. "You did the right thing in sparing him. Noir is just a monster. This isn't on you. This is on him." But Dave couldn't stand to hear any more of this. Any tries for an explanation, a shifting of blame, an apology come too late. None of it mattered. A man was dead because Noir had lived to kill him. And that was all Dave's fault. He turned on his heels and walked out of the room. Slick didn't try to stop him, and no one called out after him. He shut the door to his bedroom and forced his stiff body into bed, staring at the ceiling. He didn't sleep, and his crowded thoughts were too loud all night long. Dave went back to school the very next day, where classmates were beginning to wrap up for the summer, and his classmates still stared at him like he was a stranger, even though they had no idea of the role he played in the werewolf attack. The media were all over the event. Which gained national attention and sparked the country's interest in lycanthropy again. Mr. Vantis, the police, and even Slick had tried to keep the story from breaking, but the capture and the arrest of the only werewolf in the top 10 FBI's most wanted list was impossible to keep hushed for very long. But Slick and the police had done something clever, so that Dave's identity and role had been completely covered up. According to the media, it had taken the heroic and combined efforts of both Karkat and Mr. Vantis to subdue the werewolf, and honestly, Dave was more than okay with that. Every news story that didn't contain his name was a victory as far as Dave was concerned. Mr. Vantis was still in the hospital with a fractured jaw and broken bones in his face, and Dave's red eyes stared into the middle distance whenever he overheard the hushed, excited whispers of classmates as the media pushed the story into national spotlight. The headlines read, "Breaking news, lycanthropic serial killer who used student as weapon caught and arrested by same student turned by him over 3 years ago." While the country celebrated, Iowa itself was solemn, rocked to the core by the buildup of murders, attacks, and mayhem caused by Noir's rampage. A mail carrier was dead, another one assaulted, and nearly beaten to death for the truck Jack had stolen to complete his fake disguise. And the town itself was in mourning for the loss of one of its own. Funeral planning really took the fun out of the party. Dave kept his head down and his shoulders hunched all day, one eye peeled for Karkat. The day passed in a blur, and he couldn't help but think why the fuck was he in school right now. He couldn't pay attention to anything, pencil trapped in his jittery hand, the warped too distant sound of teacher's voice failing to reach him through the static in his mind. He understood the need to stay oblivious to what had happened, but this was fucking overkill. It's not like his classmates even knew enough to be suspicious about him. Lunchtime. There was a backlog of texts from Slick that he ignored on a brand new, still old as shit flip phone as Dave bypassed the cafeteria completely to take his usual seat in the front office. Principal Warren didn't even look up at him as he came through the door anymore. The front receptionist didn't mind him either. Like always, Officer Johnson was there. Karkat was not, and Dave's misplaced hope of seeing him today died with a dull ache. Dave sat down in his claimed chair, the empty seat beside him cold. Johnson gave him the once-over. "You look like shit." Dave should have flicked him off, spat back a scathing remark, but he didn't just have the energy for it, and his lack of response made the policeman's eyebrows raise. "Everything all right, Dave?" Johnson asked, concerned. Dave stared at the man, completely expressionless. He didn't lie. "No." Johnson's face grew more worried. "Anything I can help with?" "No," Dave said flatly. Johnson eyed the empty seat beside him knowingly. "What happened with Karkat's got you fucked up, right?" It was a correct guess, but Dave didn't let it show on his face. His fists didn't clench, his breathing stayed even. He might not even have ever made a good actor, but concealing his true emotions was basic instinct to him. He still stupidly answered, "No." The response surprised both of them, and after that, Officer Johnson left him alone. The rest of the day passed in a blur that he didn't really absorb. He really couldn't think past the name of the man who had been killed. His thoughts turned in circles. The bus took him back to the safe house. It was empty except for his handler and Hal. The computer blinked red text at him. "Welcome back. How was your day?" "Long," he mumbled, heading to the pantry to rifle through it before the thought of eating made him feel nauseous. Slick was fiddling with the laptop and scowling, probably caught in extracting vows of silence from anyone who'd seen him in the hospital. Dave left the man to his work and retreated into the bedroom. He flipped open his new phone. There were no texts from Karkat, but then again, Karkat didn't know his new number. Dave entered in info for a new contact and sent the first message cautious. "Hey, it's me on a new phone." It took a minute, but then came the response. "Dave?" Dave bit his lip, even if he didn't know why. He didn't know what it was that he was feeling right now. There wasn't a name for seeing a tangled up mixture of emotions, something or seething inside him like black rot, slowly but surely poisoning him. But whatever it was heavy. Seeing Kargat's all caps response did make him feel marginally better. Yeah. The hospital ruined my old cell, so I'm talking on a brand new piece of shit flip phone. I'd be upset that I've lost all our pictures together, except I'm pretty sure that Hal copied all of them off the old phone, so... How's your dad doing? A pause. He'll recover. There shouldn't be any lasting damage, but it's liquid only for him until his jaw finishes healing. His face is still busted to shit, but it'll be a while before the bruises start to fade. He still feels guilty, though. He thinks Noir getting into the house was his fault, since he's the one that opened the door, and I know he won't admit it, but he's ashamed that he was put out of the fight so soon. Until I met you, my dad was the most overprepared, paranoid person I knew. He was always so sure that as long as he was there to look out for me, I'd be safe. Life's a cruel bastard for stealing that certainty from him, and I never really got a chance to thank you for saving both of our lives, and for keeping me from killing that monster myself. You wouldn't have done it, even if I didn't stop you. That's just not who you are. Is it? Because right then, in that moment, with my father's blood on my hands and 3 years of hate burning through my veins, I felt a little like a killer. Like I might be able to do it. Is that crazy? Does that make me a bad person? I still don't know. I thought it was easy to be a good person before I turned, but now it's the fucking hardest thing in the world. Everything is so confusing now. But it's for the best I didn't. I know even for all of my bluff and blunder about taking revenge, I'd regret it. I'd always regret it. And my dad would be so disappointed in me. I could never let him down like that and not hate myself afterwards, even if I knew he wouldn't forgive me, or even if I knew he would forgive me. So that's about where I am in life right now, angry, confused, but relieved. It's a bit weird to consider myself free of the wolf who hunted me for so long, but at the same time, it's a fresh start, a chance to live my life free from the fear of him. And look at me ranting philosophically at you about myself like some dickwad that make Narcissus look like a fucking saint. I can't believe that the Pope himself didn't materialize in my bedroom then just to shut me up, summoned by the sin of my utter selfishness. Dear Jesus, I even talked about how it felt to be free of the guy murderously stalking me without even taking into account how that must be for you, with bro still put there. Shit, I'm sorry. How are you doing, Dave? Dave stared at the word for seconds that lasted too long. He didn't know how to answer, so he deflected to question with one of his own. It's not selfish to be grateful that Noir is behind bars. It's not selfish to be grateful that Noir is behind bars at last, but do you think I did a good thing? You're going to have to be more specific. To me, you've done a lot of good things. That compliment should have made him feel giddy, but now he just feels nauseous again. Karkat's praise was unearned. There was something eating away at the core of his being, a corruptive form of doubt that he couldn't think his way out of. It was like hitting a wall in his mind. So he set it out to try and explain his dilemma, except that starting the thought was like throwing open the floodgates. Everything came pouring out of him. Letting Noir live. Not the part about stopping you from killing him. That's not what's tearing me up inside. I get that part, completely. Noir's obsessive vendetta against you for daring to survive the first time, and the second time too. The string of bodies he left behind him, I get all of that. I understand exactly why he did what he did, and I thought I was so sure of my own choice as well, about letting him live, but did I choose wrongly when I let him live, knowing now that because of my so-called mercy, a man is dead? And if I'd manned up and ended that motherfucker like he deserved, that guy would still be alive. It's my fault he's dead. Did I do the right thing? Does good always equal right? I know most people would classify letting Noir live as a good thing, but was it right? I'm not arguing that Noir didn't deserve to be killed, but was it wrong of me to let him live? To make that choice? How could it have been the right decision when it cost an innocent man his life? Why is everything so goddamn confusing? Why can't I make good decisions without someone else paying the price. And I know you don't deserve to listen to my bullshit like this, and for that I'm fucking sorry, Carcat. I'm so sorry, and I know I'll get over this fit by tomorrow and go back to being an emotionless asshole who just has to live knowing that many, many people are dead because of me. Like, what's one more fucking body to a list as long as mine? But I thought that away from Bro, and without him murdering people in my place, that I'd stopped collecting corpses, but hey, I guess not. Because when has the world ever shown me a single lick of goodness, and seems content to shit on me at every given opportunity? And oh my god, I think I'm having a mental breakdown, like, right now. For serious, I'm freaking the fuck out. Dave, calm down, breathe. It's going to be okay. Dave set his phone down on his chest, briefly hiding the screen from sight. Carcat was just so sure of the future. Dave could have never said those words and meant them. To him, the future was a great, hungry thing out to get him, the shadow of the unknown, of the yet to come, always a half step out of reach. He still didn't know if there was a future out there for him. It seemed unlikely as long as Bro existed. But where did that leave Carcat? A loud peal of sound broke him from his musing, his phone giving a shake in his hand, the screen flashing. A phone call from Carcat. Dave painfully turned back to his phone, his finger hovering over the call button. Carcat had never called him before. What did this mean? He hesitantly accepted the call and put the flip phone to his ear. He heard the gentle noise of Carcat breathing. Dave cleared his throat. I thought phone calls were for emergencies only. Carcat scoffed at the lame attempt at deflection, his voice low. I think that this qualifies as an emergency. Does it? Dave answered evasively, his fingers tightening in his bedsheets. I didn't mean to get you caught up in my bullshit. It's not, Carcat tried to argue. It's not bullshit. Not when it's from you. Dave's throat tightened painfully at the words, forming a lump he had to swallow past. It was dark and quiet in his room. The only light came from his phone screen. No moonlight showed from outside, the time bomb of Carcat's upcoming transformation hidden behind a thick layer of clouds. What started this? Carcat asked softly, his voice a murmur. You seemed fine after the attack, more so than I think it was right to be. A small laugh, quiet and unamused. You were stoic and unflappable. You acted like none of the horror could touch you, and I envied that. What changed? Dave stared at the ceiling. I got a man killed. Carcat sighed. No, you didn't. Noir did that. It had nothing to do with you. Noir was alive because of me, Dave quickly countered. That makes it my fault. That makes it Noir's fault, because he's a batshit insane murderer. Carcat's voice sharpened through there, though it didn't lose its quiet intensity. You did the right thing. Don't let him take that from you. That blood is on his hands, not yours. It doesn't mean I did the right thing, Dave argued back, feeling desperate. That guy is still dead. And we can't change that. Carcat's voice was tired, wary. Look, Dave, we can't change the past. We can't undo what damage has been done. No amount of arguing about right or wrong or good deed or not is going to bring that man back to his family. All it's going to do is make you feel more and more miserable about what happened. Stuff you could not have changed. You did the right thing. You saved my life, my dad's life, and you showed mercy to Jack Noir. What that lunatic did afterwards isn't on you. He sighed again, worn out. I don't want that man dead any more that you don't. Hell, I know he had fucking kids that are a little younger than us even, but what happened is done with. Do you think I wanted another werewolf to get shot dead in my driveway? But what else was there to do? Carcat's voice was shaky now, near tears. The full moon is still 6 days away. That's 9 straight days spent as a wolf. That's simply not survivable. Killing him might have been its own kind of mercy, not even attempting to factor in the danger to lives he posed. Do you really think that I wouldn't have done everything in my power to save him if I could? To stop some other unwillingly turned wolf like me from becoming a killer? Carcat ran out of air to rant and sucked in a deep breath. Sometimes there's just no right answer. Sometimes all we can do is what we can. Dave wasn't sure if he believed that. Not yet, at least. Carcat went on. Sometimes Bad things happen even if we try to do the right thing, the good thing. But we can't let that stop us from choosing to do the right thing again. We can't control the future, only our actions. Dave interrupted, calming down. This part was old news to him, but the reminder still struck home. Yeah, Karkat agreed. We can't control what other people do. That's why it's up to us to make the difference. That's why it's up to us to choose our own destiny. Fate, destiny, Dave murmured, laying back and letting his eyes slip closed so that the only thing he knew was Karkat's voice in his ear. I never really believed in either. Then what do you believe in? Karkat asked, voice low and intent. I believe that the world is neither good nor bad, Dave stated, but that's not a good thing. I believe that the world makes it too easy for things to get bad, and that doing the good things takes so much more effort than going with the flow. I think this world makes it too easy to lose yourself, and once you step off that beaten path, it's an uphill battleground to claw your way upwards again. But worse than that, Dave said, eyes still closed, is that I think this world does a pretty good job of tricking us into thinking that we have to fight this battle alone. Karkat was silent for a moment, then. But you're not alone anymore, are you, Dave? Dave thought about Slick, about Drew, clubs, boxcars, about Lalonde and her fierce joy of defending him, about red text on a computer screen, the feeling of Karkat's hand in his. A million little things compounded together to form a picture that wasn't bleak, that was full of color and bursting with life, simply because other people were in it. No, Dave said. I'm not alone. Then he hung up the phone. I love them so much. Oh, what a chapter. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Oh. We're so philosophical these past few chapters. My goodness. My goodness. Well, those were the 2 chapters. I did say it was going to be a shorter stream today. Tomorrow we will be finishing Fall of Rome. Tomorrow we'll be doing 25, 26, and 27. Because most of them are... We have... The next chapter is like 7K, so it's pretty long. And then we have 3K and then 1K for the final chapter. Like 2K for the final chapter. It's like an epilogue. So, yeah. But some great chapters today. It was mostly like the aftermath of the shit that went down. Yeah, next chapter is a doozy, which is kind of why I didn't want to do it today. I thought it would be good to just kind of do the finale all in one go. But yeah, this set of chapters was it was so good. So good. What a fun set of chapters. I really like, you know, it's we get these like really big chunks of dialogue back and forth for these like character moments. You know, especially like these, right? And I don't know, there's something about it of just kind of these characters, you know, exploring these elements of like the trauma that they've dealt with, and you know, their thoughts and stuff like that, and feelings, and working through that. It's very, I think Fall of Rome is very much a character study in a lot of ways, for these guys, and I love it deeply. So yeah, but that'll be today's stream. I will see you all tomorrow for the final the final set of chapters for Fall of Rome. Wherever you are, I hope you have a lovely night / evening / day, whatever time zone you're in. I am gonna go get shit done and probably do some animating. So, lovely. Have a lovely night, y'all, and I will see you guys tomorrow. Bye.